Imagine for a moment that you are walking down a busy city street and you see a bright red car parked at the curb. It is a vintage car with old wooden panels on the sides. Suddenly a stranger walks up to you and hands you a key. He tells you that this key works. It starts the engine and opens the doors. But then he tells you that he has already given out 5,000 other keys just like it to 5,000 other strangers. He says the car belongs to whoever gets to it first. Most of us would think this is a terrible idea. It sounds like a recipe for chaos or a legal nightmare. Our natural instinct is to protect our property and keep our belongings safe and private. We like things to have clear owners and clear rules. But what if we looked at this situation differently? What if the goal of the car was not to be a vehicle for transportation but to be a reason for people to talk to each other? This brings us to a very strange and exciting space where bad ideas are not just mistakes but are actually tools for discovery. We often live our lives trying to be as reasonable as possible. We follow the advice of our colleagues and we stick to the plans that make sense on a spreadsheet. We kill our weirdest thoughts before they even leave our heads because we are afraid of looking foolish. But when we do this, we might be missing out on the most interesting parts of being human. There is a specific kind of magic that happens when we let a bad idea live long enough to see what it becomes. It is like opening a door to a room you didn't know existed. In this room, the rules of the normal world don't apply and the results are often much more wholesome and connected than we ever could have imagined. To understand why this matters, we have to look at how our modern world is built. We are surrounded by objects and systems that are designed to be perfectly functional. Your phone is a tool for communication. Your shoes are for walking. Your bank account is a private number that shows your status. Everything has a label and a specific purpose. We are taught that success means making things more efficient and more private. We build walls around our lives to keep the noise out. But in this push for efficiency, we have accidentally created a world that can feel very lonely. We interact with machines more than people. We follow algorithms that tell us what to like and who to talk to. In this very controlled environment, a bad idea acts like a glitch in the system. It breaks the routine and forces us to look at each other again. It takes a functional object like a shoe or an ATM and strips away its normal meaning. This creates a moment of confusion, and in that confusion we find a chance to connect. On the surface, we often see these things as just pranks or art projects. We see a giant red boot that looks like a cartoon and we laugh because it looks silly. We see a microscopic handbag that costs thousands of dollars and we think it is a joke about how expensive fashion has become. On this surface level, the bad idea is just a funny distraction. It is something to look at for a second on the internet before moving on. We think the goal is just to get attention or to be provocative. We see the object as the final result. But this is where our initial judgment can be wrong. We focus on the product rather than the process. We assume that the person who made the giant boot just wanted people to wear weird shoes. But the real insight is not in the shoe itself but in the chaotic glee people feel when they put it on. The surface level is just the hook that pulls us into a much deeper experience. Beneath this surface lies a very strong hidden assumption. We assume that humanity is naturally selfish and competitive. We think that if you put an ATM in a public place that shows everyone's bank balance, people will use it to mock the poor and worship the rich. We assume that a shared car will be stolen or destroyed immediately because people cannot be trusted to share. This hidden assumption of human darkness governs much of how we design our cities and our laws. We build for the worst-case scenario. We expect people to be mean and greedy. But when these bad ideas are actually put into the world, something surprising often happens. The ATM didn't create a toxic atmosphere of judgment. Instead, it created a community. People with almost no money in their accounts were cheered like heroes by total strangers. The crowd celebrated the honesty and the shared struggle of being broke. The hidden assumption that transparency leads to cruelty was proven wrong. It turns out that when we drop our guard and show our true selves, even our bank balances, we often find a warmth and a kindness that we didn't expect. This reveals a structural pattern in how humans behave in groups. We have a natural hunger for shared experiences. We want to be part of a story that is bigger than ourselves. A bad idea creates a rallying point. It gives a random group of strangers a reason to stand in the same place and have a conversation. The car with 5,000 keys became a traveling social experiment. It moved from city to city not because it was a good car but because it was a shared secret. The structural pattern here is that the object is just a catalyst. It is a campfire that people gather around. The people who bought the keys didn't care about the car after a while. They cared about the other people who had keys. They flew across the country to meet each other and share stories about their adventures. The bad idea created a new kind of family. This pattern shows us that we don't need a logical reason to come together. We just need a shared moment of wonder or absurdity. We can reframe this by looking at life as a series of experiments rather than a series of tasks. Instead of asking if an idea is good for business or if it is reasonable, we can ask if it will create a relationship. We can reframe the uncomfortable feeling of a bad idea as a sign of potential. Usually, when an idea makes us feel nervous, we run away from it. We think the discomfort means we should stop. But what if we reframe that discomfort as a signal that we are touching something real? A bad idea is often just an idea that hasn't found its purpose yet. By leaning into the things that make us feel a little bit weird or a little bit terrified, we allow ourselves to explore the edges of human creativity. We move from being consumers of a prepackaged world to being creators of a lived experience. This perspective shifts the focus from the utility of an object to the humanity of the interaction. Applying this to our daily lives doesn't mean we should all go out and do dangerous things. It means we should give ourselves permission to explore the things that don't make sense on paper. In your own work or your own hobbies, you probably have a few thoughts that you have labeled as stupid. Maybe it is a weird way to decorate your home or a strange project you want to start with your neighbors. The application here is to stop killing those thoughts. Try to do one thing this week that has no practical purpose other than to see what happens. Start a conversation that feels a little bit awkward. Share a piece of yourself that isn't perfectly polished. When we allow ourselves to be a little bit unreasonable, we invite others to do the same. This is how small communities start. It is how friendships are formed in the middle of a crowd. By embracing the bad idea, we become more approachable and more alive. We start to see that the best parts of life are often the ones that were never planned. We should remember that even a car that no longer runs can be a beautiful thing if it is covered in the messages and drawings of people who found joy in it. The car lost its wood paneling and its engine, but it gained a soul made of 5,000 different stories. This reminds us that we are not defined by what we own or how much money is in our bank account. We are defined by the connections we make and the adventures we choose to go on. A functional life is safe, but a life full of bad ideas is an epic story. We should look at the objects around us not just for what they do, but for what they could represent if we broke the rules. A key is usually a symbol of locking things away, but it can also be a symbol of an open invitation. An ATM can be a machine for greed or a stage for celebration. It all depends on our willingness to see beyond the surface and trust the people standing next to us. When we stop trying to control every outcome, we make room for the unexpected beauty of a shared awkward moment. This is the true power of the bad idea. It reminds us that we are all in this together and that the most important thing we can build is a sense of belonging. If you were given a key to a car that belonged to 5,000 other people, would you try to keep the car for yourself, or would you wait by the door to see who showed up next?